Welcome to US Open 25, a special collection of defining moments from the past 25 years of US Open tennis. Presented by Wilson. In 1978, the US Open Tennis Championships, growing in size and stature, changed surface and setting, relocating from the clay of the serene West Side Tennis Club in Forest Hills, New York, to the hard courts of the brand new USTA National Tennis Center in nearby Flushing Meadows. On this stage, over the next 2.5 decades, the Open would consistently deliver the type of thrills and drama befitting the year's last and most demanding Grand Slam event. First year in this new venue produced familiar champions, christened by Chris Evert, America's darling, winning for the 4th consecutive year.
Game, set, and match for Chris Evert. 7-5, 6-4.
And by the leading man of American tennis, Jimmy Connors, whose resounding win on the new Deco turf surface over Bjorn Borg gave him a trio of US Open titles. And established a new level of excitement in Grand Slam tennis, US Open style. Youth was served a year later. 16-year-old Tracy Austin became the event's youngest ever singles champion.
After all those long rallies, what a simple way to end it.
Belying her age with poise and polish, reflecting it with refreshing exuberance. And by feisty 20-year-old John McEnroe. His emotional duel with friend and fellow New Yorker Vitas Gerulaitis offered an early glimpse of this new supernova as he burst onto the US Open scene.
He missed it. Boy, but did he go for it. And I think McEnroe at match point. Good stab on
The promise of his remarkable talent was confirmed when he won the first of his Grand Slam singles titles and the first of 4 in Louis Armstrong Stadium. The stars of the 70s, Chris Evert and Jimmy Connors, would continue performing tennis magic well into and beyond the next decade. Chrissy, with her trademark and trend-setting two-handed backhand, part grit, part grace, all iron will. Tennis's princess would conquer Flushing twice more before her reluctant farewell in 1989. And what a US Open record! 101 match victories and an unequaled 6 Open-era singles titles. Jimmy Connors, flamboyant and fiery, fiercely defending his position atop the tennis world. He came to be adored by New York fans.
Connors fires one up to his fans.
It seems that every time I come to New York, I play my best tennis.
And to embody what the US Open is all about.
Whether you like me or not, I like you.
The unwavering desire, the emotion, the hard-nosed, never-say-die mentality. All of it on full display en route to a championship in '82 over Yvonne Lendl. And again besting Lendl in '83. With 5 singles titles to his credit, Connors stamped his place in US Open lore with an improbable age-defying run to the semis in '91. A year later, Connors would celebrate his 40th birthday at the Open before exiting stage legend at the hands of Lendl in their 35th and last meeting. Perhaps the most memorable single day of tennis, a day that still resonates, still defines the true spirit of the U.S. Open. September 8th, 1984, known simply as Super Saturday. The Yvonne Lendl-Pat Cash semifinal was destined to go 5.
Just under 3.5 hours these two have been going at one another.
But Lendl had to save a match point before forcing a 5th set tiebreak. And ultimately advancing to his 3rd consecutive U.S. Open final. Super Saturday Act 2, the much-anticipated women's final. For the 2nd consecutive year, it matched 2 great rivals, Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova. Evert's pinpoint ground strokes versus the serve and volley attack of Navratilova. They met 14 times in Grand Slam finals, and this one had the makings of a classic.
Just can't get to it. Martina Navratilova.
Martina bested Chrissy for a 2nd straight year, collecting her 2nd of 4 U.S. Open trophies. With one championship decided among intense rivals, another pair of familiar foes finally took the court as the day's drama continued into prime time, a marquee All-American men's semifinal. The only 2 men to have won the Open since it moved to Flushing, Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe. In their 28th and most electrifying encounter, 5 full sets of scintillating tennis.
McEnroe.
Shot-making brilliance from start to finish. Finally, at 11:13 p.m., an exhausted but exhilarated McEnroe secured a slot in the final, and the curtain fell on the single greatest day in tennis history.
It's going to be hard to top what happened yesterday and last night, as we had perhaps one of the great days of all time in tennis history.
After a short night's sleep, Mac returned to capture his 4th U.S. Open title with a straight set win over Yvonne Lendl. The stoic Czech exacted revenge a year later amid a remarkable run in the 80s that saw him reach 8 consecutive finals at Flushing Meadows.
Oh, good volley.
In the 1980s, the U.S. Open was center stage for the superstars of women's tennis. All looking to supplant Chris Evert as the Queen of Queens, with Martina Navratilova commanding the coronation. Steffi Graf emerged to challenge Navratilova's reign. In '87, the veteran fended off the upstart. But Graf and her fearsome forehand would prevail 2 years later. Groff called on her relentless drive, her versatility, and most of all, her steady focus to ace her sport's toughest test. Groff's first U.S. Open title in '88 capped a rare calendar year slam that weeks later became golden. Steffi, a Flushing fixture, would come to count 5 U.S. Opens among her Open-era record 22 Grand Slam singles titles. In 1990, 2 American men arrived to carry on the tradition of great U.S. Open rivalries: Pete Sampras and Andre Agassi. Sampras, the hard-hitting, soft-spoken 19-year-old, was trying to become the youngest men's champion ever. Agassi, the Las Vegas shot machine, the image is everything icon. Alike in desire to revitalize American tennis, but different in almost every other way. Their contrasts evident in their first major moment together. The end result? Sampras's trophy, Agassi's envy. A rivalry was born. The next U.S. Open chapter, the '95 final. Again, it was Pistol Pete firing his way to victory. Agassi had broken through in '94 as the first unseeded men's champion of the Open era. And again, 5 years later, resurrected from a ranking in the hundreds, grinding out a 5-set win over Todd Martin in the '99 final.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1999 U.S. Open men's singles champion, Andre Agassi.
At the turn of the century, the stars turned out for yet another Sampras-Agassi collision.
This has got that classic confrontation written all over it.
A quarterfinal between aging warriors that became a match for the ages.
Inevitable tiebreak. So here we go. Now we're talking.
No service breaks, no apologies, no losers. Tennis at its best.
There's the old Sampras overhead, or the new one, the invention he came up with. It's now a second set tiebreak. Welcome to a night in New York. We're just starting, guys. Third straight set to a tiebreak. And Sampras has come back. At fourth, tiebreak. That's as good as it gets.
A year later, Sampras at age 31, amid a 33 tournament drought, but revitalized at the scene of his first major triumph. The 32-year-old Agassi, as fit and focused as ever, meeting for the championship as they had 12 years earlier. For Sampras, a fifth U.S. Open title, and perhaps his final stamp on the tournament. The U.S. Open has been the stage for a full range of tennis styles, the runway where champions would ultimately take flight. Serve and volleyers have reigned supreme. From Hanna Mandlikova in 1985 to the 1989 champion Boris Becker to two-time champion Patrick Rathke and the swashbuckling Swede Stefan Edberg, who dominated Jim Courier in the '91 final.
The 1991 U.S. Open men's champion, Stefan Edberg.
A year later, Edberg survived 3 consecutive 5-setters to reach the final, where he defended his title with a 4-set win over Pete Sampras. There's room for scramblers, too, at the National Tennis Center for never-say-die counterpunchers. Arantxa Sanchez Vicario, an upset winner over Steffi Graf in '94. And the fierce Aussie, Leighton Hewitt, too much for Sampras in 2001. Versatile shot makers are in the mix, from Hingis to Wielander and to Sabatini. And if big hitting's your game, then let her rip at the Open. Marat Safin boomed his way past Sampras in the 2000 final. And in 1998, Lindsay Davenport overpowered Martina Hingis, becoming the first American-born women's champion since Chris Evert 16 years before. The U.S. Open has come to reflect the global reach of tennis, and not just in the diversity of its champions. Back in 1991, 2 teenagers of very different backgrounds faced off in a U.S. Open semifinal slugfest that signaled a revolution in women's tennis. 17-year-old Monica Seles, introduced to the sport on a parking lot by her father in their native Yugoslavia. Jennifer Capriati, the phenom from Florida. Just 15 years old, their semifinal encounter unveiled the new power game to come.
One day, 10 or 15 years from now, they're going to look back at this and say, I can't believe how I used to swing.
Swing from the heels power, a potent new formula for the future. This was U.S. Open tennis at a whole new level. Marcus would go on to capture 2 straight U.S. Open titles, becoming the dominant force in women's tennis. Arthur Ashe Kids Day gives the sport's youngest fans a chance to have fun, develop an appreciation for the game, and maybe even pick up a few pointers from their favorite players. In 1997, the National Tennis Center added a grand centerpiece on which to celebrate the sport and to showcase the talent of its superstars. Arthur Ashe Stadium, named for a true pioneer, a champion of tennis and humanity. Its ceremonial unveiling summoned a cast of U.S. Open champions past and present. This elite group was essential to the growth of the U.S. Open and its current place as a true sporting spectacular. The next stage in the evolution of tennis is evident in the power style of the Williams sisters, sculpted by their iconoclastic father on the public courts of Compton, California. Destined to dominate their sport, Venus would confirm their potential by reaching the '97 final. 2 years later, Serena brought the first Grand Slam title home. Her awesome power, too much for Martina Hingis in a straight-set victory that served notice. Indeed, a new era had begun. The Williams sisters perfecting the power game, adding speed and fitness to the formula, asserting their sibling stranglehold in 2001 when they met in the first prime-time U.S. Open women's final and the tournament's first ever all-sister final.
Ladies and gentlemen, Serena Williams and Venus Williams.
A year later, Ashe Stadium, already the scene of countless memorable moments, offered New Yorkers a moment to reflect on the tragedy of September 11th and celebrate the city's resilience. With the American flag recovered from the World Trade Center flying above the stadium, the hottest sister act in sports returned to center stage. Venus and Serena continuing America's rich tennis tradition, meeting again in the U.S. Open final. The champions of the past 25 years have all helped weave the U.S. Open tapestry. But they are not alone in delivering flashes of drama and magic that give the tournament its unique and enduring appeal. The U.S. Open at the National Tennis Center. A quarter century of great moments past, more certain to come, on a sporting stage unlike any other.
Tennis players have always searched for three things in a racket: power, control, and comfort. But they could never have it all. One trait was always compromised for another in traditional one-piece rackets. Wilson, the #1 name in tennis, introduces Triad, a revolutionary multi-component design that maximizes power, control, and comfort without compromising one for the other.
Triad is the most significant breakthrough in tennis in the last 50 years. The hoop and the handle are designed as separate components. They never touch. This allows us to customize the power and the control levels for any type of player. Then we buffer the connection point in the throat with an exclusive industrial polymer that helps reduce shock by up to 60%. Triad is a multi-component racket that delivers unparalleled performance that cannot be achieved by a one-piece design. The consumer response to Triad has been phenomenal. After only 18 months, Triad was granted a worldwide patent and is the best-selling technology in tennis today, as evidenced by the fact that 3 Triads were in the top 10 sellers in the Pro Specialty Shop Trade Channel in 2002. Triad works for any type of player. It is simply a better way to make a tennis racket.
Triad 2 is the most powerful Triad ever created. Triad 3 is the lightest, most maneuverable Triad for power and feel, and Triad 5 is the perfect blend of power and control for precision shot making. Wilson Triad is now the best-selling racket in the world. For more information, log on to wilsonsports.com.